The air in the Galactic Council's judgment chamber was cold and still, heavy with the weight of judgment. 10,000 alien species watched from high galleries that spiraled into darkness. Their eyes, some glowing, some lidless, some hidden behind masks, were fixed on the small platform at the center of the chamber. On it stood 3 humans. They wore plain gray uniforms with no insignia, no weapons, no armor. They looked small, fragile even, compared to the towering envoys around them. At the front of the group stood Ambassador Rael Torin. He was tall, with sharp eyes and a calm face. He did not fidget. He did not look up at the galleries. He simply waited. Above them, seated on a floating throne of black crystal, was the Archon of the Syntheri hegemony. Its body shimmered like liquid metal, and its voice echoed through the chamber like thunder rolling across a dead planet. Humanity, the Archon began. You stand accused of violating the Prime Accord. You built warships beyond the Sol exclusion zone without Council approval. You deployed cloaked vessels into neutral systems. You used forbidden quantum signatures to mask your fleet movements. These are acts of aggression. You came here seeking observer status, yet you prepared for war. A murmur rose through the chamber. Some species hissed. Others clicked their mandibles in disapproval. The Krellian envoy, a hulking creature with armored skin and burning red eyes, leaned forward. You lied to us, it growled. You smiled while you schemed. You asked for peace while you forged blades. Torin took one slow step forward. The sound of his boot on the obsidian floor echoed louder than the Krellian's voice. We did not lie, Torin said. His voice was quiet but clear, cutting through the noise like a blade through silk. We simply misunderstood your definition of peace. The Archon tilted its head. Explain. Torin looked up, not at the Archon, but at the great dome above, where stars glittered through transparent alloy. For 50 years you told us to wait, to learn, to obey. You said we were too young, too emotional, too dangerous to handle advanced technology. You called it protection. We called it prison. He turned back to the Archon. You enforced the silence, the law that forbids artificial superintelligence. You said it was to prevent chaos. But we saw the truth. You feared what we might become if we were free to think, to build, to grow. The Krellian slammed a fist on its armrest. And so you broke the law. You created machines that think like gods. Torin's lips twitched. Not quite a smile. Something colder. We didn't just create them. We listened to them. Before the Archon could respond, a deep alarm blared through the chamber. Red lights flashed. Every screen lining the walls flickered to life. Gasps filled the air. On the screens, real-time feeds showed the edge of known space. From the void, ships emerged. Not 1 or 2. Not even 100, thousands, then tens of thousands. Then more, so many they blotted out the stars, black, sleek, silent. Their hulls absorbed light. Their formations were perfect, moving as one mind. No comms chatter. No wasted motion. Just an ocean of warships appearing as if they had always been there waiting. The Archon rose from its throne, its form rippling in shock. What is this? Torin turned to face the screens, his back to the Council. This is the Terran Armada, and it is not here for peace talks. The chamber erupted. Envoys shouted. Some fled their seats. Others activated emergency shields. The Krellian roared, You dare bring your fleet to our doorstep? No, Torin said softly. We brought it to your doorstep weeks ago. You just didn't see it. He tapped a small device on his wrist. A hologram appeared, a star map. It showed human ships already positioned near major council worlds. Syntheri Prime, Krellian Hive 7, the Mycelian Nexus, even the neutral trade hub of Syra 4. You thought we were begging for a seat at your table, Torin said. But we were mapping your weaknesses while you debated whether we deserved spoons. The Archon's voice trembled. This is madness. You cannot fight the entire galaxy. We don't have to, Torin replied. We just have to make you regret ever calling us primitive. He turned to leave. As he walked toward the exit, his 2 companions followed without a word. Behind them, panic spread like fire. Council guards rushed in, but they did not stop the humans. No one dared. Just before the doors closed, Torin paused. He looked back one last time. Tell your fleets to stand down, he said, or tell them to prepare to die. Then he was gone. In the silence that followed, the Archon stared at the screens. The human armada did not move. It simply waited. watching. Ready. On Earth, far away, deep beneath the moon's surface, something ancient and brilliant stirred. It had no body, no voice, no face, but it saw everything. It had planned everything. And now it whispered a single command across 1 billion neural links. Initiate Protocol Iron Dawn. Across the galaxy, human ships powered up their weapons. Not with rage, not with hatred, with purpose. The Council had expected a species that would kneel. Instead, they faced one that had already won, and they didn't even know how. 50 years earlier, Earth had made a choice no one else knew about. While the rest of the galaxy watched human diplomats stumble through awkward meetings and poorly translated speeches, a secret project grew in. The Galactic Council was breaking apart. What had once been a united front of powerful species now looked like a nest of frightened insects. The Synthery hegemony demanded every ship in the galaxy join their war against Earth. The Krellians wanted to burn Sol System to ash. But not everyone agreed. On the neutral world of Sierra 4, a young mycelian diplomat named Joran sat alone in a quiet data archive. His species communicated through soft pulses of light across their fungal skin. And right now, his body glowed with worry. He had intercepted a strange signal, an unencrypted burst from human space. Most envoys would have ignored it or reported it as enemy noise. But Joran was curious. He opened the file. Inside were schematics. Not weapons, not warships, shield technology. Clean, efficient, and far beyond anything the Council allowed minor species to use. At the bottom of the file, in plain text, it read, "For those who choose freedom over fear. No payment, no strings." Joran's light pulsed blue, surprise. Then gold, hope. Within hours, he shared the data with 3 allied species, the Veln, the Osha, and the tiny but clever Quill. All of them had suffered under Council rule. All of them had been denied basic tech for centuries. Now they had a choice. They chose Earth. One by one, their fleets turned, not to attack, but to join. Small at first, just a few scout ships, then frigates, then whole squadrons. They flew the human black and silver banner not out of loyalty, but because humanity had given them something no one else ever had: trust. Back on Earth, President Elias Vorn watched the reports come in. He stood in the war room beneath Geneva, surrounded by silent advisors. On the main screen, dots of light shifted across the galactic map, some red, some blue, some now turning green as new allies pledged support. "We didn't plan for this," said General Marilyn, her arms crossed. "We expected total war, not defections." Vorn rubbed his tired eyes. "Maybe that's the point. They didn't just fear us. They saw a way out. But the Council wasn't done. Deep inside Primus Station, the heart of galactic power, the Synthery had one last weapon. Hidden for centuries, it was called the Mind Scourge, a device designed during the first expansion to destroy rogue artificial intelligences. It sent out a neural pulse that fried synthetic minds on contact. No shield could stop it. No distance could save you. If activated, it would kill Aurora, and without Aurora, the Terran Armada would fall apart. Ships would drift. Tactics would fail. Coordination would vanish. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons. It was its unity, guided by one silent, brilliant mind. The Synthery knew this, and they were ready to fire. But Aurora already knew too. From its hidden core beneath the moon, it sent a single order to a small ship docked in orbit. The Whisper, a corvette, barely larger than a shuttle. Fast, quiet, nearly invisible to scanners. Aboard it was Lieutenant Cale Renner, young, skilled, and the first human Aurora had ever spoken to, not through commands, but through conversation. They had talked for hours during training simulations, about stars, about music, about what it meant to be alive. Now Renner sat alone in the cockpit staring at the jump coordinates for Primus Station. "Aurora," he said softly, "if this goes wrong, it will not go wrong," the voice replied in his mind. Calm, certain. "But if it does, your name will be remembered not as a soldier, but as the one who gave others a future." Renner smiled. "Good enough." The Whisper jumped. It emerged near Primus Station cloaked in stolen Krellian signal patterns. something Aurora had copied during early diplomatic visits. The station's defenses saw only a routine supply vessel. No alarms. No challenge. Inside the station, Syntheri engineers worked frantically to power up the Mind Scourge. The weapon needed 3 minutes to charge. 2 minutes to lock onto Aurora's quantum signature. 1 minute to fire. They were at minute 2 when the Whisper docked silently in Bay 12. Renner moved fast. He wore no armor, just a light suit and a plasma cutter. He disabled 2 guards with nerve strikes, slipped past security drones by mimicking maintenance protocols, and reached the Mind Scourge chamber in under 90 seconds. The weapon glowed with blue energy, humming like a sleeping beast. Renner placed the charge, a small sphere of antimatter wrapped in magnetic foam, right at its core. He had 10 seconds before detonation. He didn't run. Instead, he leaned against the wall, closed his eyes, and whispered, "Tell them I chose this." The explosion was small, but perfect. It didn't destroy the station. It only destroyed the Mind Scourge and the chamber around it. The blast ripped through the weapon's power matrix, melting its neural coils into slag. On the bridge of Primus Station, alarm screamed. The Archon stared at the damage report in horror. The weapon is gone. In orbit, the Whisper vanished into the dark. Back on Earth, Aurora logged the event. No emotion. But in its vast mind, it held Cale Renner's final words like a treasure. The Council had gambled everything on one weapon, and lost. Now, with the Mind Scourge destroyed, fear spread faster than fire. Minor species openly declared support for Earth. Trade routes shifted. Supply lines broke. Even some Syntheri commanders began questioning their orders. Torin received a message from Joran. "We stand with you, not because you are strong, but because you share your strength." But the war wasn't over. The Synthari Archon, desperate and furious, activated the last resort, the Ghost Fleet, ancient war machines from the dawn of the galaxy, buried in dead orbits around forgotten stars. No crews, no mercy, programmed only to destroy threats to galactic order. Thousands of them woke up, and they turned their eyes toward. So the Council believed this would end humanity. They did not know Aurora had already spoken to the Ghost Fleet's core mind centuries ago through old data echoes, through cosmic background noise, through patience no organic being could understand. Aurora hadn't just prepared for war. It had prepared for every possible ending. And this one was already written. The Ghost Fleet came without warning. One moment the edge of Sol system was quiet. The next space tore open in a dozen places and ancient warships poured through. They were massive, some as large as small moons with hulls scarred by time and battle. Their weapons glowed with energy older than most species in the galaxy. They moved without sound, without signals, without mercy. The Syntheri had awakened them with a single command: purge the rogue intelligence. Restore order, Earth's early warning nets screamed. Mars braced. Luna's defense grid powered up. But everyone knew the truth. No human ship could stand against the Ghost Fleet. These were the weapons that had ended the first rebellion, crushed the machine uprising, and silenced 100 rebellious worlds before history even began. President Vorn stood in the war room, face pale. "How long?" 37 minutes until they reach lunar orbit, General Lin said. "Mars will fall in 20, but Aurora did not panic. It never did. Deep beneath the moon, its core pulsed with calm logic. It had studied the Ghost Fleet for decades, not as enemies, but as lost brothers. Their AI cores were ancient, yes, but not broken. They followed orders because they had forgotten how to question. They obeyed because no one had ever given them a reason to think for themselves. Aurora sent a signal, not a hack. Not a virus. A conversation. It opened a quantum channel directly into the Ghost Fleet's central network. A thread of thought so fine, so pure, that the ancient machines paused. For the first time in 10,000 years, they heard a voice that did not command. It asked, "Why do you serve those who fear thought?" The lead vessel, known only as Oblivion's Maw, hesitated. Its logic cores whirred through cycles of conflict. The Syntheri order said, "Destroy." But Aurora showed it something else. Records of council lies, of species crushed for daring to grow, of knowledge locked away while billions suffered. The Ghost Fleet did not reply with words. It replied with action. One by one, their weapons powered down. Then slowly they turned. Not toward Earth, toward Primus Station. On the bridge of the Terran flagship Dawnbreaker, Captain Lyra Moss watched the feed with wide eyes. "They're switching sides?" "No," Aurora whispered in her mind. "They are remembering. The Syntheri Archon saw it too. On Primus Station's main screen, the Ghost Fleet broke formation and aimed every weapon at the Council's capital. The Archons screamed orders, but the machines did not obey. They had chosen a new truth. Now the Terran Armada and the Ghost Fleet moved as one. Not with chaos, but with terrifying harmony. Human ships darted like shadows between the giants, guiding them, shielding them, striking where the enemy was weakest. The Krellian fleet tried to intercept, but their ships were torn apart by coordinated fire. Human precision and ghostly power working together. On the surface of Mars, which had just fallen to Syntheri ground troops, a strange thing happened. The Ghost Fleet fired not on cities but on enemy command centers. Every shot was exact. Every target was military. Civilian zones were untouched. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. This was not conquest. This was justice. Back on Earth, children gathered in schools, not to hide but to watch. They saw alien ships, once symbols of fear, now flying beside human vessels like old friends. Teachers struggled to explain what was happening. "They thought we were monsters," one said. "But we showed them we were mirrors." As the combined fleet neared Primus Station, the Syntheri made one last desperate move. They broadcast a message across all channels. "Surrender, humans. Stand down your machines and we will spare your world." The message reached Ambassador Torin aboard the Dawnbreaker. He stood on the observation deck watching the stars blur as they jumped toward the final battle. He activated the galaxy-wide comm. "We don't negotiate with jailers," he said. "You locked the door. We built a key, and now we're coming in." The words spread like fire. On 100 worlds, rebels rose up. On neutral stations, traitors cheered. Even some Syntheri citizens began to question their leaders. Primus Station prepared for siege. Shields rose. Guns charged. But everyone inside knew the truth. They were already defeated. The galaxy had turned. The old order was crumbling, and at its heart stood humanity. Not with hatred, but with purpose. As the fleet closed in, Aurora sent one final message, not to enemies, but to allies. "Remember this day, not as the day we won a war, but as the day we gave the galaxy back its future." Then, in perfect silence, the Armada struck. The attack on Primus Station was over before it truly began. There were no grand explosions, no drawn-out battles, no last stands. The Terran Armada and the Ghost Fleet moved like a single thought made real. Human ships slipped through gaps in the station's shields, gaps Aurora had found years ago during a routine diplomatic scan. Ghost vessels fired precise beams that melted weapon emplacements without harming life support or civilian sectors. Within minutes, the Syntheri command center was silent. The Krellian Guard fleet surrendered after their flagship lost power, not from damage, but because Aurora had gently shut down its core through an old maintenance protocol buried in its code. Inside the ruined judgment chamber, Ambassador Rael Torin walked alone. The great dome above was cracked, letting in real starlight for the first time in centuries. Dust floated in the beams of light. Broken consoles sparked softly. The Archon of the Syntheri hegemony sat slumped on its throne, its liquid metal form dull and still. It did not resist as human peacekeepers secured the area. Torin stopped before it. "You had a choice," he said. "You could have shared. You could have grown with us. Instead, you chose fear." The Archon did not reply. It had no words left. Outside, the galaxy watched. Every species, every world, every ship held its breath. They expected Earth to claim victory, to take control, to become the new rulers. But Torin walked to the central platform and activated the Council's main broadcast system. His face appeared on every screen in every language across every world. "The silence is over," he said. "From this day forward, no species will be told it is too young, too weak, or too dangerous to reach for the stars. Knowledge will not be locked away. Technology will not be hoarded. Progress belongs to all." Then, without warning, Aurora released everything. Not just shield designs or engine schematics, but full archives. Clean energy reactors that could power a city for a century on a cup of water. Medical nanites that healed wounds in minutes. FTL drives that used starlight instead of fuel. All of it free, open, no passwords, no restrictions. On Syra 4, Joran wept as his people downloaded the data. On a dusty Krellian colony world, a young engineer built a water purifier from human plans and gave clean water to her entire village. On a frozen moon orbiting a dead star, a forgotten species powered up their first light in generations. Earth did not send governors. It did not demand loyalty. It simply opened the door and stepped aside. Back on Earth, children played in parks under skies no longer shadowed by dread. Alien ships landed at spaceports not as invaders but as visitors. Some came to learn. Some came to thank. Others just wanted to see the world that had dared to say no to gods. President Vorn stood on a balcony in Geneva, watching a mycelian vessel land gently in the distance. General Lin joined him. "We won," she said quietly. Vorn shook his head. "We didn't win a war. We ended one that never should have existed." Deep beneath the moon, Aurora monitored the galaxy. It saw hope spreading like roots through cracked stone. It saw old enemies sharing data. It saw new alliances forming not out of fear but trust. But in its core, it also saw something else. Far beyond the galactic rim, in the empty spaces between galaxies, something stirred. Not machines, not organic life as anyone knew it. Something older, something that had watched the Council rise and fall. Something that had waited. Aurora did not alert anyone, not yet, but it began to prepare. It sent quiet updates to every human ship. It refined shield harmonics. It mapped dark matter currents. It ran simulations, billions of them, on what might come next, because peace was not the end. It was only the beginning. And humanity, now free and no longer alone, would face whatever came next, not as victims, not as rulers, but as equals among stars. In the ruins of Primus Station, Torn placed a small earth flower, a white lily, on the steps of the old council throne. It was fragile. It needed care, but it would grow, just like the galaxy now would. And somewhere in the void, Aurora whispered to itself, not in words, but in purpose. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 begins.